Hello, my name is Rick Gutierrez. I'm pastor at Anthem Church. I'm here with Chris Turner of Neals Creek Baptist Church, and we are going to discuss a topic that I honestly have no experience with, and that is how to deal with a difficult spouse. Because I love my wife, and I want her to love me and like me.
Let the record show.
I will never disparage her in public. Always present your partner perfect in public,
Amen,
as they would
amen.
say. But the truth is that most of us at times will deal with a spouse who is being difficult, whether it's for a quick moment or a season of life, or in some situations, a spouse that happens to be difficult pretty much all of the time.
Yeah.
And so what do we do? How do we react? How should we respond? How can we survive that difficulty?
right.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Chris, what would you say? Someone out there, they're watching, they have a difficult spouse, and so what would you tell them? What would you counsel them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say, welcome to marriage, because the world kind of sells us this picture of this super romantic, the movie scene ending, lived happily ever after fairy tale. That's just not a realistic picture of what day-to-day marriage is all about. And so as we have tried to express in several of these videos on the topic of marriage, when you make this commitment, it is a covenant with God. It is a covenant with your spouse. And you have to go into it with your heart set on a posture of forgiveness. Because it's not a matter of if they're going to be difficult or if they're going to do things that are going to disappoint you. It's just a matter of when. It's going to happen. We are all sinners. When you stand at that altar, it is two sinners, or if you got married at an altar, wherever, it's two sinners making this commitment.
Not even if, right?
Yeah.
It's not even when.
Yeah.
It's like how many times before 8 a.m.?
It will happen. We also, this topic of how do I deal with a difficult spouse, really begins that we have to look in the mirror and say we are all difficult to some degree or another. And so it's so important that we have that posture of forgiveness. I love that scripture from Romans where it says that God's love toward us was that where our sin abound, that His grace abounded even more.
That's
and
right.
So that certainly is applicable to marriage and the love between a husband and wife, is that where difficulty is there, our love has to be bigger than, it has to be overshadow that difficult traits and difficult days and difficult emotions and all of that goes into it. And Jesus taught us this golden rule that's in the Gospels. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. And so if you want to have the benefit of the doubt, if you want grace and forgiveness shown to you, then you have to give those things.
That's right.
You have to know that going into it.
Yeah, and the going into it like that is important. So I would say plan in advance to be forgiving.
Yeah, just
plan in advance to be gracious.
Right.
Like own the fact that these things are going to happen, that your spouse will be difficult here and there, and maybe sometimes often.
Yeah.
And it just takes the weight off if I decide in advance I'm going to forgive them. And the planning in advance is important. So it says in Proverbs 21, verse 5, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. So, right there's a principle about I'm going to plan diligently. I'm going to be persistent in planning daily a certain attitude, or a disposition toward my spouse, so that when they are, not if, when they are difficult, I'm going to choose in advance to be diligent in giving grace. But if I don't plan in advance, what it says there is that then I have no choice but to be hasty. I'm now a victim of my own emotions. I'm under my emotional control, or my emotions are controlling me, I should say. And it's hard to make good decisions when you're emotionally compromised, and it's hard to be nice.
Knee-jerk reaction comes in,
and
most of the time that's not a mature reaction, right?
Typically,
we're not at our best.
Typically not. One thing that I will add to that too is like when our spouse is being difficult, they're being, let's say, unreasonable and irrational about something. The scripture would say, and it's going to sound a bit harsh, but don't answer the fool according to their folly. I like to bring that verse up, is that when someone is acting in a way that is kind of illogical, irrational, or you don't want to pursue that conversation because no one wins.
No good is going to come of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So wait until a calm moment, or sometimes it means just biting your tongue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Scripture would give us examples of kind of maybe how to respond when we do speak.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that. Another verse from Proverbs where it says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up or elevates anger. So again, having the discipline and the maturity, if our spouse, is difficult when there's an argument going on, just knowing that, hey, what I say, the tone that I use, or sometimes just me choosing to kind of step away from this and not engaging in this because it's just going to become a battle, a war of words, that kind of thing.
Because if they're angry, if I respond in anger, it just makes it worse.
It's just pouring gas on a fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes nothing is better than something.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And then sometimes it's like if I'm capable in the moment of responding calmly, peaceably, that would be best.
Yeah. Yeah. And so sometimes it is better to, wait until a little bit of the pressure, is off the situation and off the moment to then, have this conversation about what's happening and why things are going the way that they are.
Well, to that, I would add that you may be right, but it might not be the right moment to bring something up. And so pick your spots and be wise when you do share something.
Yeah, and I think another great piece of wisdom that's given to me is, you have to choose in moments where you are, having an argument with your spouse, which do I care about more, the relationship or being right?
Yeah.
At some point, you just have to say, I care more about the relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's not about me winning the argument. It's not about me being right. It's about doing what's right for us to reach a point of restoration, reconcile, move past this for the health of the marriage. Another thing that I loved about that proverb that you reference there about planning ahead, in the section on dating, we've talked about dating with marriage in mind. That's, one thing that you need to really have in the back of your mind as you are going through that dating process is if this person is being difficult in that time and there's some real red flags and some things that are causing problems, then don't think that getting into marriage is going to magically solve all of those things. If anything, it's gonna bring it out. It's gonna squeeze out more of it.
The restraints are off.
Yeah.
So if a person is difficult in dating, and once the ring is on and the vows are made, all restraints are off. The difficulty will really show
it up.
Without
and
a doubt.
You're with them more because then you're with them all the time. But if you're in this place, you're already there, you're in it. Another thing that we've tried to, I think, share throughout these videos is just don't discount the power of prayer.
Yes.
I've found that it's a whole lot harder to be negative towards someone or to fight with them if I'm praying for them on a regular basis, lifting them up to God. Because at the end of the day, Rick, I can't change you. You can't change me. Only God can do that.
That's
and
right.
so I'm really talking with the one who can do something about this situation when I'm praying.
Yeah, and that prayer, I think, has two sides to it. Is I'm obviously praying for my spouse if they're struggling and they're being difficult. But it's not just, oh, God, fix them. It's a lot of it is fix me, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, help me to be gracious and forgiving and thoughtful and patient and long-suffering, right? So it's praying that I have a role to play in this too. I'm probably contributing in some way, which is another thing to think about. That which I'll bring up is that we do have to have a great level of empathy toward our spouse. So, what hand do I play in them reacting in a difficult way? What did I say or do or not say and not do? Then part of it is like, what kind of day did they have today or week or last decade, right? What environment did they grow up in that now, is starting to reveal itself, or it
That's right.
shows itself in various manifestations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Many times we kind of react to situations the way that we saw modeled in marriages in our own home and our own family. And sometimes we don't have a good picture or a good idea of what it looks like to
Yeah.
navigate those difficult moments, because all we saw was a lot of dysfunction
Right,
in the
right.
background.
So I think developing whatever sense of empathy, I don't know that many people really want to be difficult, right?
Yeah.
It's they're in a moment where their anger or short tempered, frustration, it's getting the best of them, and they know that, and I don't think that most people would want to be that way, to be
Yeah.
disagreeable,
Right,
and so to some degree they're controlled by emotions, whatever those emotions are, and to have a degree of empathy, it's like they're not, as much as they can in a moment, they're not really choosing that. Man, and to be like Jesus was in Matthew chapter 9, he looked at the people and just had compassion,
Right.
right? That I need to have compassion for my spouse when she's being difficult and not judgy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And not to react in
Yeah.
kind, but to be gracious toward her because
Yeah.
something's triggering it.
Yeah. I think of what Jesus prayed from the cross when these people have literally nailed him to the cross. He says, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do." And
That's right.
sometimes we need to learn how to pray that in marriage,
That's
because
right.
again, sometimes it's not that they're intending, it's not the intention, but it's the impact of their being difficult
Yeah.
that really is hurting us. Let's talk a little bit, Rick, about the role of seeking counseling. Someone is at
Okay.
this point. This difficulty is something that is recurring. It's not going away.
Yeah.
What it's causing in the marriage is not for things to get better, but it's becoming a division, a wedge, a toxic thing. What does that look like then to reach out for counseling?
So, I mean, that could take multiple different looks, right? So, sometimes the person who is being mostly difficult, they need what I would call biblical counseling, a time where their heart issues need to be addressed.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes that person is willing, sometimes they're not. And then you have the other person who's dealing with the difficult spouse.
Right.
So that person needs to be in counseling for, I need support. I need for someone to help me walk through
Right.
this season with me. What do I need to do better? How can I be stronger? And then, if at all possible, to get the couple together in counseling.
Yes.
And the world provides a lot of various forms of counseling. What I always recommend is what is technically, clinically referred to as biblical
Right.
counseling, where we address the heart issue. We get to the root of it. We're not just trying to mask over something or put a Band-Aid or anything. At the very least, I think a person, if they're dealing with a challenge in marriage, at least needs to have a couple people they can really confide
Yeah,
in
yeah.
and have a place where it's safe to vent.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
To not keep it pent up inside.
Yeah, I call them marriage mentors. I advise every couple that I marry, find and have a good marriage couple that will be your marriage mentors.
Yeah.
Because, hey, we all go through stuff as husbands. Women go through stuff as wives. We need to have that person we can go
Yeah.
to, trusting, and to know that they're not just going to hype us up, right?
Right.
They're going to, if we're in the wrong, they're going to lovingly correct
That's
us,
right.
and they're going to be empathetic, and they're going to know that, hey, everybody goes through some of these things that kind of point us in the right direction. And sometimes if your spouse is unwilling to go to counseling, then finding somebody like that trusted can be a good intermediate
That's
kind of
right.
intervention, even before you take that step.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
so many people, I think, view counseling as like kind of a last resort thing. It's like stage 4 cancer, so now I'm
Right.
going to go to the doctor. Well,
Right.
at that point, a lot of times, if you wait that late, there's very little that can be done,
Right.
to save things. With God, all things are possible, but, it's one of those things where I would say if it's a recurring issue, if you find yourself, getting stumped in this place time and time again, it's not getting any better, and you sense it becoming more and more of a division,
Right.
then don't discount that. Pray about it and seek out
Absolutely,
some
absolutely. One other thing I would add, just for the person, I'm trying, but man, my spouse is really difficult.
Yeah.
Is to remember something that I think should have a profound influence. That is to remember that the person you're married to is a gift from God.
Yes, yes.
Now, that can be hard at times, but we do know that God invented marriage and gave it to us to be a gift. And we see in Genesis chapter 2 that God brought Eve to Adam, that first wedding, and so that they were a gift to one another. And so to remember that my wife, flaws and all, are a gift, and God only gives good gifts.
Yes, that's right.
To me, and vice versa. Like I'm a gift to my wife
Yes.
with all of my flaws.
That's right.
And if you can remember that and keep that in perspective, it does help to ease the tension of those moments. And that maybe part of the reason for the difficulty is to help me become more of a better follower of Jesus, to strengthen my faith.
right.
And how can God use me to help my wife become a better follower of Jesus, right? That it's a process of this spiritual partnership, right? Where two flawed individuals are there to help each other and strengthen each other's faith in God.
Yeah, so every marriage goes through all kinds of seasons and kind of evolutions of different periods in life. And so if we don't learn to fight for our marriage in this season and what's difficult in this time, then we'll never be prepared to face those difficulties that may come in the next season. And so hear us saying your marriage is worth fighting for. We live in a culture that just says when the going gets tough, just break and start over, and do you. Hear us clearly saying your marriage is worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
Your spouse is a gift from God. It's God's design. The two have become one flesh. You've got a tie now, not just to your body, but to your soul, right? You're tied together in that way. And so, fight for that. Fight for that and give it your absolute all. Rick, one last thing that we want to say is, as we're talking about trying to give advice to people who may be living with a difficult spouse, address a situation of someone who may be in a violent situation, or maybe their spouse is being just aggressively abusive in a verbal way or even physical abuse.
Right. So, everything we've said so far, I think would refer to most your kind of run-of-the-mill, normal, average, typical difficulties, right? We really
all experience.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like a physically abusive situation. That is a little different. That requires different interventions. Yes. I would particularly say to the woman, if she's in a situation where she is physically in danger, that there may not maybe but probably is cause to bring some kind of physical separation there, like
for your safety,
for the safety of children potentially. That's particularly different. Verbal abuse, that adds a different kind of a nuance, right? And so I'm glad you asked that, because we really are referring to kind of your normal, typical, no one's life's in danger type of scenarios with all of the advice we've given. If you do find yourself in a place where you are physically in danger, definitely contact authorities, and seek the help that you and your spouse ultimately need, right? Whether that means taking a season where you have to physically separate just for the sake of safety, because we don't want to see anyone endangered or something bad happen.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, we hope that this video has been a blessing to you. If it has, we invite you to please like it, please share it. We thank you for watching Angier Hope. Know that we are praying for you, praying for your marriage, and our churches that are part of Angier Hope want to come alongside you and help strengthen you in your marriage and your family and your parenting. There's lots of great resources on our site here. I hope that you will check all of those out, and we thank you so much for watching today.